The creepy whisper in the dark. Paranormal experiences you won't forget. I never imagined I'd be the kind of person to tell a story like this. The kind that claws at your mind, leaving you staring at the ceiling at 3 a.m., ears straining for sounds that shouldn't exist, eyes darting to shadows that seem to linger just a little too long. But what happened to me last summer in that decrepit rental house on Maple Street changed me, broke something inside me, and now I can't keep it locked away. Not when the memories still slither into my dreams. Not when I still feel that cold, deliberate presence watching me from corners I can't see. It all started so innocently, so mundanely, that I almost laugh thinking about how naive I was, how I thought I could outrun it. I was 23, fresh out of college, scraping by with freelance graphic design gigs that barely covered my ramen and coffee diet, desperate for a place I could afford in a town where rent prices seemed to mock my bank account. When I found the listing for a small, weathered house on the edge of town, half the price of anything else, I thought I'd hit the jackpot. The realtor, a woman named Karen with a tight smile and nervous eyes, called it charming but quirky. Her voice catching on the word quirky, like she was swallowing something bitter. I ignored it. Ignored the way her hands fidgeted when she handed me the keys. Ignored the faint smell of damp wood and something metallic when I first stepped inside. The house was old, probably early 1900s, with peeling wallpaper, creaky floorboards, and windows that rattled in their frames even when there was no wind. It felt heavy, like the air was thicker than it should be, but I chalked it up to the house being empty for so long, told myself I'd make it my own with some posters and string lights. That first night, I unpacked my boxes, blasting indie rock to drown out the oppressive silence. But even the music couldn't shake the feeling that the house was listening. The floorboards groaned under my steps, not randomly, but almost rhythmically, like they were answering me. And when I turned off the lights to sleep, the darkness felt alive, pressing against my skin like a cold, wet cloth. I laughed it off, new place, new noises, just my imagination running wild after too many late-night horror podcasts. But by the third night, I couldn't laugh anymore. It started with the whispering. It was subtle at first, a faint, raspy sound, like someone dragging their nails across coarse fabric, coming from the hallway just outside my bedroom door. It always began around 2 a.m., when the world outside was dead quiet except for the occasional rustle of leaves or the distant bark of a dog. I'd lie there, frozen under my thin blanket, straining to make sense of it, telling myself it was the house settling, old pipes, loose shingles, anything rational. But the whispers grew clearer, forming words I couldn't quite catch, like a conversation happening just beyond the edge of understanding, soft and insistent, circling my room like smoke. I'd hold my breath, my heart pounding so loud I thought it might drown out the sound, but it never did. The first time I got the courage to check, I flung open the door, phone flashlight shaking in my hand, only to find the hallway empty, the air colder than it should have been, the shadows clinging to the walls like they were reluctant to move. I stood there, my breath fogging in the dim light, feeling like something was standing just out of sight, just behind me, waiting for me to turn around. I didn't. I slammed the door, locked it, and spent the rest of the night with the lights on, scrolling through Reddit threads about paranormal experiences, half laughing at myself for even entertaining the idea. But the stories I read, people hearing voices, seeing shapes in the dark, feeling touches when no one was there, felt too close to home, too real. I started sleeping with my desk lamp aimed at the door, my phone clutched like a lifeline, but the whispers didn't stop. They got worse. By the end of the first week, I was barely sleeping, my eyes bloodshot, my hands jittery from too much coffee and not enough rest. The whispers weren't just at night anymore. I'd hear them in the daytime, faint but unmistakable, while I was working on my laptop or making toast in the cramped kitchen. They'd come from different places now, the attic, the basement, the closet in the spare room I never used. Sometimes it was just a word, sharp and clear, listen. Other times it was a low, guttural hum, like a chant I couldn't decipher. I started noticing other things, too. Little things that made my skin prickle. My keys would be on the counter instead of the hook where I always left them. My coffee mug would be turned upside down, the handle facing the wrong way. Once, I found my sketchbook open to a page I hadn't touched, with a crude, jagged drawing of a face I didn't recognize, all sharp angles and hollow eyes, scratched into the paper like someone had used a knife. I tore it out, burned it in the sink, and watched the smoke curl up, my hands shaking so bad I dropped the lighter. I told myself I was stressed, overworked, maybe even losing it, but deep down, I knew it wasn't just me. The house was doing this, or something in it was. I called Karen, my voice shaking as I asked about the house's history, and she went quiet for so long I thought the call had dropped. Finally, she admitted the house had been empty for years after the last tenant. A man in his 40s named Daniel disappeared without a trace. He'd been quiet, kept to himself, but neighbors swore they'd heard arguing from the house late at night, even though he lived alone. "Probably nothing," she said too quickly, and hung up before I could ask more. I should have left then. I should have packed my bags and couch-surfed until I found somewhere else. But I was stubborn, broke, and maybe a little curious, like an idiot in a horror movie who opens the creepy door instead of running. I decided to prove it was all in my head. I dug out my old webcam, the one I used for video calls, and set it up in the hallway, aimed at my bedroom door. I hit record before bed, figuring I'd catch nothing and laugh at myself in the morning. But when I checked the footage, my stomach dropped so fast I thought I'd be sick. At 2:17 a.m., the screen showed a faint, blurry shape at the end of the hall, like a person standing perfectly still, their head tilted at an unnatural angle, like their neck was broken but they were still upright. The audio picked up the whisper, clearer than ever. A single phrase that made my blood freeze. "You shouldn't be here." I watched it over and over, zooming in until the pixels blurred, trying to convince myself it was a glitch, a shadow, anything but what it looked like. But the figure was too distinct, too human yet not quite right. Its edges smudged like it wasn't fully there. In the footage, I saw myself open the door, the light from my room spilling out, and the figure just vanished like it had never been there. I didn't sleep that night. I sat on my bed, knees pulled to my chest, listening to the house creak and groan, every sound feeling like a threat. The next day, I went to the library, desperate for answers. I dug through old newspapers, local history records, anything I could find about Maple Street. Most of it was mundane. Property sales, zoning disputes, but then I found an article from 1998, yellowed and brittle, about a woman named Margaret who'd lived in my house. She'd been found dead in the basement, ruled a suicide, but the details were vague, and neighbors claimed they'd seen her talking to herself for months, muttering about the voice that wouldn't stop. The article mentioned her son, Daniel, who'd inherited the house but left town after her death. My heart sank. Daniel, the missing tenant. I kept digging, my hands cold, and found a forum post from a local historian claiming the house had been built on land where something bad happened in the 1800s, though they didn't elaborate. By the time I got home, the sun was setting, and the house felt different, like it knew I'd been poking into its past. The whispers started early that night, louder, angrier, circling my room like a storm. "Get out!" They hissed, over and over, until it felt like the words were inside my skull. I tried to ignore them, blasting music through my earbuds, but then I felt it. A cold, deliberate breath on the back of my neck, like someone was standing right behind me. I spun around, screaming, but no one was there, just the empty room and the shadows that seemed to pulse in the corners. I couldn't take it anymore. I grabbed my backpack, stuffed it with clothes, my laptop, whatever I could carry, and ran for the front door. But the lock wouldn't turn. The knob was ice cold, burning my hand, and the door rattled but wouldn't budge, like something was holding it shut. The lights flickered, then went out, plunging the house into darkness so thick I could barely see my own hands. The whispers turned into a laugh, low and guttural, coming from everywhere. Above me, below me, inside the walls. I stumbled to the back door, my breath hitching, but it was the same, stuck, unyielding. The windows wouldn't open either, their frames sealed tight, and the air grew heavy, like I was breathing through a wet cloth. I was trapped. I don't know how long I pounded on the door, screaming until my throat was raw, but at some point, I blacked out. When I came to, I was on the front lawn, my bag beside me, the door wide open like it had never been locked. The sun was rising, casting long shadows across the grass, and the house looked normal, almost peaceful. But my arms were covered in scratches, thin and precise, like they'd been carved with a razor. I didn't go back inside. I left everything else. My books, my clothes, my stupid string lights, and crashed at my friend Jake's place, ignoring his questions about the marks on my arms, the way my hands wouldn't stop shaking. I thought it was over. I thought I'd escaped. But a month later, I was scrolling through a local history group on Facebook when I saw a photo of the house, posted by someone researching old properties. In the background, through the front window, was a face. Pale, blurry, its head tilted at that same unnatural angle, staring right at the camera, right at me. My heart stopped. I zoomed in, my fingers trembling, and the face seemed to sharpen, its eyes hollow, its mouth twisted into something that wasn't quite a smile. I deleted the app, shut my laptop, and told myself it was a coincidence, a trick of the light. But then the whispers started again. In my new apartment, miles away, they came at 2 a.m., faint at first, just like before, but growing louder each night. "You brought me," they said over and over until I was afraid to close my eyes. I set up my webcam again, praying it was nothing, but last night, it caught something. A shadow in the corner of my room, moving when I didn't, its edges smudged like it wasn't fully there. And then, clear as day, it whispered my name. I don't know what it is or what it wants, but I know I didn't escape that house. I brought something with me, something that's not done, something that's been waiting all this time. The scratches on my arms are fresh again, appearing overnight and last week. I found my coffee mug upside down, the handle facing the wrong way. I'm writing this because I need someone to know, because I'm scared I won't make it to next week. If you've ever felt something watching you, heard a voice when you're alone, share this. Maybe I'm not crazy. Maybe I'm not the only one.